Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The rain began at dusk, a thin, needling mist that transformed the canyons behind the Forrester estate into sticky red dirt. Hope stood on the guesthouse balcony, coatless, allowing the water to seep through her top and cling to her skin like a second, colder layer. Inside, the screen flickered with a muffled weather report, flash flood warnings for the arroyos, but she didn't pay attention. She was listening to the silence of tires on wet gravel, waiting for Liam's Prius to arrive. It did not. Instead, a cab from LAX arrived, headlights shining through the rain. Beth stepped outside, luggage wheels squeaking on the stones. She appeared shorter than Hope remembered, as if the flight from Paris had taken the height out of her. Hope greeted her at the entrance.
Mom.
You did not call. I couldn't. Beth's voice trembled like thin ice. I need to tell you something before I lose my nerve. They sat at the kitchen island, with a solitary lamp casting yellow light between them. Beth's hands trembled so much that she couldn't open the bottle of water Hope had slipped across the marble. Hope did it for her. It's about the night Phoebe died, Beth began. Hope's stomach caved in on itself. She had had nightmares about Beth confessing that the kid was never hers, that the adoption papers were faked, and that Steffi's sadness was based on a lie. But the truth, when it arrived, was ugly and straightforward. I knew, Beth replied. I knew Liam and Steffi were together in the guest cottage that night. I spotted them through the window. I saw him kiss her goodbye at the door, but I still told you he was alone, grieving with you. Hope's pulse thudded in her ears. You saw them. I persuaded myself it was comforting. Two people had lost a child. But I understood what I was doing. I wanted you to have the family I didn't give you. So I buried it. The rain pelted the skylight like tossed pebbles. Hope stood, moved to the window, and rested her forehead against the cool glass. Below, the canyon lights merged into gold streaks. How long? She asked. Since the memorial. I kept thinking that if I waited, the opportunity would pass. It never happened. Hope turned. You let me build a life on a lie. I let you build it on my silence, she corrected. There's a difference, Hope said with a bone-chilling laugh. Is there? She left the guest house without a coat or keys. The security gate recognized her face and swung open. She proceeded downhill to the main road, her shoes filling with water. At the bottom of the hill, she requested a rideshare. When the driver asked where she was going, she immediately provided him Liam's address. Liam opened the door in sweatpants and uncertainty. Hope, you're soaked. She stepped inside, dripping on the travertine. Beth told me. His face drained of color. I told you what? You were with Steffi the night Phoebe died. That my mother watched you lie to me for 2 years. Liam lunged for her, but she pulled aside. I was going to tell you. He had no response. The silence was broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock his father had sent from Italy. I thought if I just loved you harder, he said finally, the past would stay past. Hope stared at the framed photo on the console. The three of them at the county fair. Beth's face cropped out of the memory. She grabbed it up and turned it face down. I need to know something, she explained. When you said you were in the hospital chapel, were you praying for Phoebe or scheming how to keep Steffi quiet? Liam's mouth opened and closed. That's enough of an answer, she said, walking out. The rain had ceased, and the air smelled of wet sage and eucalyptus. She did not call for another ride. She walked the 4 miles to the beach, shoes squelching, till the sky lightened to the color of dishwater. At home, Beth sat on the front steps, suitcase by her side like a loyal puppy. I booked a hotel, she said. Hope sat next to her and said, I'll be gone by noon. They avoided making contact. I keep thinking about the first time you held Phoebe, Beth told me. You were so careful, as if she were made of glass. I told myself that being careful was love. Perhaps it was just dread. Hope looked at the wet roadway. I don't know how to forgive you. You don't have to. Not yet, Beth said as she left at 10. Hope watched the cab disappear around the corner before going inside and unplugging every clock in the house. Time seemed like a betrayal now. She did not call Liam. She did not call Steffi. She didn't call anyone. Instead, she opened the closet where she stored Phoebe's belongings, including a little knit cap, a hospital wristband, and a lock of black hair. She placed them on the kitchen table and stared till the edges blurred. At 3 a.m.,
The doorbell rang.
Steffi stood on the entrance, eyes blazing and hair in a tangled knot.
I heard, she said.
Hope stepped aside, saying, "I'm sorry." Steffi arrived and took in the infant mementos on the table. "I didn't realize Beth knew," Steffi said. "I swear. I believe you." They sat at opposite ends of the couch, a canyon of pillows separating them. "I loved her, too," Steffi said quietly.
Phoebe.
"I still do." Hope nodded. For once, the silence was pleasant and free of competition. "I'm leaving Spencer Publications," Hope announced abruptly. "I'm going to take Hope for the future independently. There will be no more family strings." Steffi's eyes widened. "You'll meet investors." "I'll find them." Steffi paused. "I could help. Not as a forester. As a friend." Hope considered. "Maybe. What comes after is unclear." Days turned into weeks. Hope worked 16-hour shifts, powered by coffee and the metallic taste of wrath. She assembled a small team, rented a warehouse in the Arts District, and stocked it with bolts of organic cotton and used sewing machines. The initial collection was called Unraveling and consisted of clothing that could be disassembled and rewoven, with each seam offering a different option. Liam texted once, "Can we talk?" She left him on read. Beth wrote a postcard from a monastery in Big Sur, saying, "I'm learning silence. It is louder than I thought." One night, Hope awoke at 2 a.m. from a dream in which Phoebe was alive and toddling across a beach of broken clocks. She drove to the cemetery and sat on the moist grass next to the little stone. "I don't know how to be your mother without being his wife," she said quietly. "I don't know how to be anyone's daughter." Her words were swept away by the wind. Hope for the Future debuted in a pop-up in Venice this spring. The models ranged in size and age, and the clothing was unpolished, raw-edged, and honest. Critics referred to it as cathartic minimalism. Sales began to trickle in. Steffi arrived at the after-party and stood in the corner, nursing a club soda. Hope found her there. "I sold the guest house," Hope explained. "Purchased a loft downtown. There are no canyon views." "Good," Steffi responded. "Canyons echo." They clinked their plastic cups. Liam came at the doorway, haggard and unshaven. He didn't approach, instead watching from across the room. Hope met his gaze and held it until he turned away. Later, on the fire escape, she lit a cigarette but did not smoke it, instead letting it burn between her fingers. The ash expanded, fell, and scattered on the metal grate. Beth called to mark the 1-year anniversary of the confession. "I'm coming home," she said. "Do not remain. Just to see you." Hope greeted her at Union Station. They walked to Olvera Street and bought churros, which neither of them ate. "I joined a grief group," Beth explained. "We sit in a circle and confess the worst thing we've ever done." Hope laughed, shocked at the sound. "Mine's a tie." They sat on a bench, watching people take selfies with the historic church. "I forgive you," Hope said abruptly. "Not because it is noble. Because holding on is heavier than letting go." Beth's eyes widened. "Thank you." They did not hug. They did not need to. Summer arrived, brutal and dazzling. Hope's brand developed to include household goods such as blankets dyed with avocado pits and cushions packed with recycled sari silk. She recruited Beth as a consultant, not for forgiveness, but because her mother was the best color expert she knew. One evening, they shuttered the warehouse together, leaving the windows open to capture the air off the Los Angeles River. Beth hesitated at the cutting table. "I used to think truth was a scalpel," she told me. "Now I believe it is a seam ripper. Messy, but necessary." Hope nodded. "We're all unraveling a little." Outside, the city pulsed with traffic, sirens, and someone playing saxophone on a rooftop. Hope bolted the door and set the alarm. "Drink?" Beth inquired. "Coffee," Hope answered. I'm done with numbing. They went to a diner on 6th and ordered pie, which they didn't complete. The waitress addressed them as ladies and refilled their glasses without asking. At the counter, a radio was playing an old song about lost love. Hope listened to the lyrics and felt them land differently, not as prophecy, but as weather. Beth added sugar to her coffee, 3 packets, a habit Hope had forgotten. I'm proud of you, Beth stated. I'm proud of us, Hope responded. They placed a 20 on the table and walked away into the darkness. The air smelt like jasmine and pollution. Somewhere, a car alarm chirped before stopping. Hope slid her hand into her mother's. Beth squeezed once and let go. They did not speak again until they had reached the corner. See you tomorrow? Beth inquired. Bright and early, Hope stated. She watched her mother vanish down the subway stairs before turning back toward home. Her apartment, her work, her life, all patched together from the threads she'd cut loose. The city lights flashed on one by one. Hope went beneath them, lighter than she had been in years, carrying the burden of truth like a lamp rather than a stone. Beth had grown up in a house where secrets lurked like shadows, always hidden beneath the smiles and carefully selected words of adults who thought they were protecting her. For years, she carried questions in her heart, questions that became heavier with age, questions that clung to her whenever she heard her parents dispute in hushed tones behind closed doors or saw her mother cry silently while folding laundry late at night. She had always felt there was something amiss, something concealed beneath her family's carefully crafted appearance. Beth's life has always revolved around Hope. Her mother was kind, patient, and comforting. No matter how much pain Hope felt in her own heart, she never made Beth feel unloved. Hope's eyes betrayed her more than her words. There was a desire there, a loneliness she could never fully conceal, even when Liam smiled at her in front of their daughter. Beth saw through it in the manner that only a child can, innocent but attentive. The day Beth discovered the truth began just like any other. She was cleaning her room when she found an old box stashed in the back of the closet. Inside were photographs, notes, and a small notebook written in her mother's handwriting. Beth had only intended to peek, but the words on those pages drew her further and deeper until the world around her blurred. She read about Liam's betrayals, how he had switched between her mother and another woman, and how Hope had forgiven him each time because she hoped he would ultimately choose her and be faithful. However, the notebook told a different story, one of continuous grief, unfulfilled promises, and evenings when Hope wept herself to sleep. Beth's chest clenched as she remembered how much her mother had sacrificed and endured to keep their family together. She felt rage bubbling inside her. Rage at Liam for not seeing the value in her mother, rage at the unfairness of it all, and rage at herself for not realizing how deep her mother's grief was. But most of all, she felt sorrow. The truth was terrible, but it had to be told. Beth couldn't take it any longer that evening, as Hope sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea and attempting to mask her tiredness. She approached her mother, clutching the journal, her hands trembling. "Mom," Beth said softly, her voice breaking. Hope looked up, shocked. "Beth, what is it, sweetie?" Beth put the journal on the table. "I understand. I've read it. I understand what Dad did to you." The stillness that followed was awful. Hope's face became pale, and her hands froze over the mug. For a minute, she appeared to want to deny it, shielding her kid from the ugliness of the truth. But her shoulders fell, and she let out a long, tired groan. "You shouldn't have read that," Hope added gently, her voice wavering. Beth's eyes flooded with tears. "How could you allow him to do this to you? How could you allow him to hurt you over and over? You deserve better, Mom. You always have." Hope closed her eyes, her heart suffering not only from the weight of her history, but also from the sorrow she saw on her daughter's face. She had spent so many years attempting to hide Beth from the reality of her relationship with Liam, believing that keeping the image of the entire family was preferable to exposing the flaws. But now the truth was out, and there was no turning back. "I wanted to believe in him," Hope said, her voice hoarse. "I wanted to think that love was sufficient, and that if I forgave him, he would change. I thought keeping our family together was worth the pain. Beth shook her head, tears flowing down her cheeks. But it was not worth it, Mom. It was not worth your happiness. He doesn't deserve you. Hope drew Beth into her arms, holding her tightly as if she could protect her from the anguish of knowing. For the first time in years, Hope allowed herself to cry in front of her kid. They remained like that for a long time, two hearts tied together by anguish and love, until the sound of the front door opening snapped the fragile moment. Liam strolled in with groceries, his smile dissolving as he noticed the sorrow in their eyes. "What is going on?" he asked hesitantly, laying the bags down. Beth backed away from her mother, her little figure shaking with wrath. She glanced at her father, her eyes filled with fire that he had never seen before. "I know what you did to Mom," she said angrily. "I know everything." Liam froze, his face pale. He looked to Hope, who was staring down at the table, her silence confirming what Beth had said. His throat clenched as he attempted to make words, but none came. Beth's voice cracked as she proceeded. "You broke her heart time and again. You swore to love her, yet you kept going back to someone else. Do you understand what that did to her? Do you realize how much grief you caused?" Liam moved forward, his hands outstretched. "Please, Beth. It's not that simple. I adore your mother. I love you. I have committed mistakes, but—" "Mistakes?" Beth interrupted, her tone stern. "A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday or arriving late for dinner. What you did was correct. It was a decision. You decided to hurt her over and over." Hope finally responded, her voice shaking but firm. "That's enough, Beth." Beth shook her head.
"No, Mom.
"That's not enough. He needs to hear it. He needs to understand." She returned her gaze to Liam, her eyes filled with rage and sadness. "You don't deserve her, Father. You never did." The words hit Liam like a punch. For years, he had walked a fine line between two worlds, convinced himself that he could be forgiven and that he could still love and be faithful despite his treachery. But witnessing his daughter say those words damaged something within him. He stared at Hope, scanning her face for the typical tenderness and desire to forgive. But instead, he saw resolution. Hope wiped away her tears and stood. Her voice was calm, yet forceful. "She's correct, Liam. I can't keep doing this. I can't let you keep breaking me. For years, I persuaded myself that I was staying because Beth needed her father and mother together. But all I've taught her is how to take less than what she deserves. I can't teach her that anymore," Liam said, his pulse pounding. "Hope, please. Do not do this. This is something we can fix." "I'll do whatever it takes," Hope said, shaking her head. "You have mentioned that before. Too many times. And each time I believed you. But not anymore. It's over, Liam." Her words weighed thick in the room. Liam's eyes welled up with tears as he realized he'd lost the lady who loved him more than anyone else ever has. He wanted to fight, beg, and pledge change again, but he knew it wouldn't help. He'd crossed the line too many times. Beth clutched to her mother's side, her small hand tightly clutching Hope's, as if to provide strength. Hope felt strangely free for the first time, even in the midst of her anguish. It was as if the weight she had carried for so long had finally been released. She had broken free from the never-ending cycle of betrayal and forgiveness. She was choosing herself, and by doing so, she was also choosing Beth. Hope sat in Beth's room that night, after Liam had left in silence. They didn't say anything, but laid in bed together, holding each other tight. Beth said, "I apologize, Mom. I did not mean to hurt you. I couldn't keep it inside any longer." Hope kissed the top of her daughter's head. "You did not injure me, dear. You saved me. You reminded me of what I deserved. And you reminded me that I am not alone." Beth sniffled. "Will we be okay?" Hope smiled through her tears.
"Yes."
"It'll be difficult, but we'll be fine. Because we have each other." In the weeks that followed, the house felt quieter and emptier without Liam, but also lighter. Hope no longer had to lie or hide her pain beneath fake smiles. She concentrated on healing and rebuilding her life, not as half of a broken marriage, but as a whole person, a mother who wanted to teach her daughter the value of self-esteem and strength.